Welcome to 2001, an Interpretive Odyssey with Louis Holder. Hello there, and a very warm welcome to you. The time now has just gone 10:01, and I'm joined by Rizwan Ali. Hello, Rizwan.
Hello there, how are you doing tonight?
I'm very well, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, I'm fine, thank you. So tonight we will be discussing one of the most influential films. In fact, one of the most one of the most bizarre films, in the sense that it has inspired many years of questioning as to the nature of itself. 2001: A Space Odyssey, directed by Stanley Kubrick. So then,
that is correct indeed. Now we're going to be looking at different interpretations. Well, our interpretations, because they vary slightly. Obviously, we have got sort of data and information to back up our answers where needed and where provided. But to be honest with you, a Kubrick 2001: A Space Odyssey needs a lot of explanation, but it also needs no explanation, because it's one of those films that poses more questions than answers indeed. So, yeah, I mean, I'll go through... Do you want me to go with my interpretation first, or would you like to go, Riz?
You can start off first. I'll be perfectly happy to follow on.
Okay. Well, I'd say that 2001: A Space Odyssey is one of my favourite films. Definitely my favourite sci-fi of all time. I've committed far too many hours of my life watching it, and I'm now here to share my thoughts on what the ending means. 2001's been puzzling viewers since the day it came out, and will probably forever continue to puzzle people until humans are so advanced that we become star children, like Dave himself, if that's possible anyway. I did this interpretation about a couple of weeks ago. I wrote this down and I thought that it'd be interesting to share it with you. So yeah. There are many questions surrounding 2001 that have to be answered to figure out the ending, like what is the monolith? Why did it appear in every step of human evolution? What in the world even happened in the last 30 minutes of the film? Well, luckily for you, I'm here to hopefully answer all of those questions and more with this interpretation. So, I'll start with the monolith, and then you can expand, Riz, if that's okay.
Yep, I'll be absolutely fine on my end.
Awesome. I'll start with the monolith. With all the evidence that the film gives us, it suggests that the monolith is some sort of tool that a highly advanced alien civilization has sent to Earth to progress the evolution of humans. Stanley Kubrick uses a song, interestingly enough, Requiem by Gregory Ligeti, to not only create a chilling mood, but also give the monolith a voice. So, Rizwan, do you remember when the monolith would play? I mean, well, you'd see the monolith, and then you'd have these sounds of, like, these voices, like, ee, or something like that.
Yeah, these were chilling. As you said, they are very chilling. In fact, even now thinking about it, they just scared me.
I know, so scary. It's like it has this kind of really weird, jarring feeling that it doesn't quite fit in the sort of context of the scene. You've got this monolith just appearing there, and you've got these sort of eerie, kind of choir-like sounds, so to speak.
Exactly. I think that's what makes it iconic, in that it's a mysterious figure. It's appeared out of nowhere, and curiosity has brought us towards it. I mean, what is this monolith? I mean,
I don't really know, because if you think about it, doesn't the black screen like go on for a bit too long in the beginning?
Yeah, no, it goes on for quite long, which
is it 4 minutes or something?
The mystery of monolith.
Yeah.
And but I think honestly that could the monolith. I think the drive to find out what the monolith is could have actually driven evolution by itself somehow.
That's a really interesting point. I mean, what do you mean by evolution driving itself? Because that's really interesting.
Yeah, no, because I mean, if you think about referring back to the first scene when the humanoids in early Africa,
right?
I mean, at first they group around the monolith, they look at it and they think, "What on earth is this structure?" And they group around it, and from there they end up using. From there, we can see one of the apes beginning to use the bone as a tool. Although
that is evolution, isn't it? At its principle.
Exactly. But we don't know what could have driven it. Could the monolith have strictly driven it, or was there
Well,
much
perhaps
more...
the monolith could have driven it. I don't know. I mean, I'm just as puzzled as you on this bit because at the beginning, as you say, these sort of humanoids could kind of they see this. They're very quaint. They're very happy there in their sort of desert-like environment, and then you see this monolith come out of nowhere, sort of towering above, and they don't really know what to do with it, and they kind of go up to touch it, to sniff it, or whatever. But then, as you say, when they use the bones as well in a separate scene, in this scene as well, there's that. It's one ape, is it, or is it a few ape? Is it all of them? Or is it just one?
I think it's really one, and then the others follow through.
Yeah, and then the bones are like the tools, and then they get to know them, and then what happens after that?
Yeah, the familiarization, and then the ape that is actually using the bone ends up realizing its potential as a tool, and from there we see the watering hole that was originally taken from this ape using a bone as a tool. He reclaims it, and I really do not. And really, I was just
yeah. I think that you're absolutely right in saying that, explain the monolith, what its purpose is to serve, and we can sort of explain that sort of 2001 is the story, right? Let's get this straight. Of human evolution itself from the beginning to the end, and the ending of the film is Kubrick's version of what the next step of human evolution looks like. I mean, it's too bad that he didn't live to see the actual 2001. He died in 1999, just after the finishing of Eyes Wide Shut, the terrible erotic thriller that I would never consider a Kubrick film, other than the fact that it has Tom Cruise and Nicole Kidman in it. But in general, I think that the evolution into the Star Child is perhaps one of the most puzzling moments of 2001.
Yeah, no, and now I'm thinking of it as now this is some people think of the film as an allegory, i.e. A story with two meanings, a literal and a symbolic.
Ooh.
Now the most popular allegory for 2001 is actually the conception allegory, which you've said it mentioned just now as the Star Child, i.e. the birth of the Star Child from Dave after he allegedly passes away. And I think of that as being sort of reincarnation in a way, in its it's an endless cycle, really, isn't it? Birth, death,
yeah.
Birth, death, birth, death. It's ongoing. It's never tiring. It's a bit like how the heart muscle is like. It's it just keeps on beating, on and on and on.
Yeah, I think that's a really good comparison, to be honest with you, because obviously with something so ambiguous as this, we need to, in order to compare something so ambiguous, you have to compare it to something which isn't ambiguous, something factual, something like biology, something like, as you're saying.
Exactly. I mean, it's you can't really define it by a single meaning, and I think that's where
you have to define it by multiple meanings in a way, because that multiple meaning can kind of make you converge on one meaning because they all might share a similar idea. This is kind of going into philosophical territory a bit, but at the end of the day, you can't always be justified by the means of science. You have to be kind of, philosophical, but not on a religious level, like on a scientific level.
I think you need to look at. I think you need to look beyond the lines when it comes to science. When you're thinking about 2001, if I'm perfectly honest, you can't really consider religion in it because I don't think there is much to support religious ideologies. So
no, not as such. Definitely not with the whole kind of extraterrestrial idea. I don't think that is something that would work quite well, sort of comparing religion with. Kubrick encouraged people to explore their own interpretations of the film. But he refused to offer an explanation of what really happened in the movie, preferring instead to let audiences embrace their own ideas and theories. In a 1968 interview with Playboy, funnily enough, Kubrick stated that you're free to speculate as you wish about the philosophical and allegorical meaning of the film, as you said before, and such speculation is one indication that it has succeeded in gripping the audience at a deep level. But I don't want to spell out a verbal roadmap for 2001 that every viewer will feel obligated to pursue, or else fears he's missed the point. Neither of the two creators equated openness to interpretation with meaninglessness, although it might seem that Clarke implied as much when he stated, shortly after the film's release, if anyone understands it on the first viewing, we failed in our intention. When told of the comment, Kubrick said that I believe he made it, the comment, facetiously, and the very nature of the visual experience in 2001 is to give the viewer an instantaneous, visceral reaction that does not and should not, may I point out, should not require further application. I'll just say that when told that Kubrick had called his comment facetious, Clarke responded that I still stand by this remark, which does not mean one can't enjoy the movie completely the first time round. What I meant was, of course, that because we were dealing with the mystery of the universe and with powers and forces greater than man's comprehension, then by definition they could not be totally understandable. Yet there is at least one ideological structure, and sometimes more than one, behind everything that happens on the screen in 2001, and the ending does not consist of random enigmas, some critics to the contrary. What do you think to this?
Well, although I would say that it is ambiguous, I wouldn't necessarily say that it is ambiguous to the point where critics have sort of damned it in that sense. Well, I would say that it has incited... I think the magic of 2001 lies within the fact that it is... I mean, it's launched all these. I mean, I find that quite... I find that a surprise in itself, really. But I find it really sort of unique that a film could manage to do this. And I also feel, and I like the fact that Kubrick allowed viewers to have their own opinions on it as well. And that's how I feel about the whole idea of it being like that in its nature. That's how I feel.
Mm. Well, we're going to come back to the monolith in just a moment's time. We're going to explain its appearances, because obviously the monolith is perhaps the most puzzling point of 2001 and the most evocative, I feel. That is in our discussion, the meaning of the monolith today. There are lots of interpretations online, of course, of 2001. It's perhaps one of the most written about films of all time, with loads of video analysis, loads of text written by anyone from great professors who've done film studies and are Kubrickians, so to speak, to anyone like us who are just sort of plain filmmakers / enthusiasts / psychologists, biologists and scientists, including you. You're a scientist, aren't you?
Yep, I'm hoping to do chemistry at university, and I find the film really gripping and also I feel that it's actually helped out with a lot of my creative thinking skills. In essence.
So we're going to talk about the monolith, and we're going to talk about hell as well, because obviously, I mean, you literally fell in love with hell. I don't know, I think you might be a little bit crazy, but you fell in love with it, as I did as well.
Yeah, no, I think we all have a soft spot for hell, but I don't think we...
what an evil machine.
Oh, all right. Well,
an evil machine.
Yeah, he is an evil machine, but let's talk about the famous block standing right in front of us.
Oh, yes, the cinema screen. Oh, whoops, sorry, I gave too much away. Just having a look at some sort of religious-y interpretations and thing. There is actually one quite poignant religious interpretation, which I will read to you now, just quickly before we move on to the monolith. In an interview for Rolling Stone magazine this time round, not Playboy, Kubrick said, on the deeper psychological level, the film's plot symbolises the search for God, and it finally postulates what is little less than a scientific definition of God. The film revolves around this metaphysical conception and the realistic hardware and the documentary feelings about everything were necessary in order to undermine your built-in resistance to the poetical concept. But also, going back to Playboy, if 2001 A Space Odyssey was a religious film, Kubrick elaborated, I will say that the God concept is at the heart of 2001, but not any traditional anthropomorphic image of God. I don't believe in any of Earth's monotheistic relations or religions, who knows. But I do believe that one can construct an intriguing scientific definition of God once you accept the fact that there are approximately 100 billion stars in our galaxy alone. There's loads of God stuff, so I'll stop there and let's go on to the monolith, as you said. Thank you for pushing on with that discussion, because otherwise I would have been talking about religion the whole time, and that's something that I'm not very good at talking about.
Neither am myself.
Well, no, you're very good at talking about religion because you're religious yourself, which is quite interesting to have a sort of theistical point of view.
Fiestical point of view, I don't really like to mix it in, only because of the fact that I'm not so... I might be a part of a religion, but I'm not too religious myself.
No, not too religious crazy.
Yep,
well,
exactly.
Got to be polite, but, you know.
Right.
So, the monolith, as with many elements of the film, God, I love that film. The iconic monolith has been subject to countless interpretations, including, as you said, religious, alchemical, historical, and evolutionary. To some extent, the very way in which it appears and is presented allows the viewer to project onto it all manner of ideas relating to the film. The monolith in the movie seems to represent and even trigger epic transitions in the history of human evolution of man from ape-like beings to civilized men, hence the Odyssey of mankind. Now, let's go back to that beginning scene with the humanoids, with the apes themselves.
Yep.
What did you make of the bone to satellite transition of that period of time?
The bone satellite transition was... Now, this was rather... Now, I could actually see the connection right away, because if you think about it like this, the satellite itself was in a very similar shape to the bone, and it represented the fact that we as humans have evolved from using menial tools such as bones and using them to make even greater tools to support the Odyssey toward, as Kubrick put it, as Kubrick put it himself, a metaphysical form of God. I feel that but really the connection is quite obvious to myself, although to newer viewers it's pretty much obscure. So allow me to expand on the point. The bone to satellite scene really represents development, in essence, as a result of humanoid evolution. So from apes to Neanderthals, and then Neanderthals to ourselves. And really, the fact that we have made satellites is a homage, rather, to the fact to evolution. A homage, really, if I think about it.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I agree with I agree with the idea of it. I agree with the idea of the fact that it does trigger the transitions in the history of human evolution, like, as you said, evolution of man from ape-like beings to civilized men, and hence the Odyssey of mankind, which will go on for goodness knows how long now, you know?
Yeah.
Will go on forever.
Definitely. That's a really good point. Thank you for that. That's actually kind of sparked some imagination for me for once this evening, this late at night at 10:19, to be honest with you. But yeah, you seem to be... I mean, you are on the ball, obviously, after, watching this film. I'm sure it's been really sort of inspiring as well. I remember the first time I watched this film. I sound so old when I say that. I remember the first time when I watched this film, and I was inspired, definitely. Right, so let's get back to business with the monolith. So the monolith appears, just so people aren't aware, if you haven't seen the movie, then you should not be listening to this podcast at all. Otherwise, you will not get whatever we're talking about. It's for those kind of Kubrickians, those kind of 2001: Space Odyssey people. So please do watch it. It's one of the greatest films of all time, not just on a subjective level, but on an objective level. It's absolutely incredible. This month, I seem to have had 2001 fever. And I seem to have just let everyone just kind of, watch it and just put that kind of thought on everyone. I mean, obviously, I don't like to think I bullied you into watching it, but I think it was kind of a sort of fascination that perhaps you needed a bit of sort of spark in. I think everyone needed a bit of spark to watch it.
Yeah, I think you need to...
Motivation.
Yeah, I think people should watch it. Give it a try. If you don't like it, that's fine. But, at least give it the time of day.
Yeah. The monolith appears 4 times in 2001, right? Yep. On the African savannah, on the moon, in space orbiting Jupiter, which is the mission, and near Bowman's bed before his transformation. After the first encounter with the monolith, we see the leader of the apes. We didn't know that he was the leader of the apes until researching this. Have a quick flashback to the monolith, after which he picks up a bone and uses it to smash other bones. Its usage as a weapon enables his tribe to defeat the other tribe of apes occupying the waterhole, who have not learned how to use bones as weapons. After this victory, the ape leader throws his bone into the air, after which the scene shifts to an orbiting weapon 4 million years later, inaugurated human evolution. Hence the much more advanced orbiting weapon 4 million years later. I would not describe this a weapon as such. I describe it as a satellite or maybe a spaceship, but it does look like a weapon, obviously, because, as you said before, the bone-shape resemblance. The first and second encounters of humanity with the monolith have visual elements in common. Both apes and later astronauts touch the monolith gingerly with their hands, and both sequences conclude with near identical images of the sun appearing directly over the monolith. The first with a crescent moon adjacent to it in the sky, and note this, the second with a near identical crescent Earth in the same position, both echoing the Sun-Earth-Moon alignment seen at the very beginning of the film, where the titles play into consideration. The second encounter also suggests the triggering of the monolith's radio signal to Jupiter by the presence of humans, echoing the premise of Clarke's source story, The Sentinel. Now, obviously, The Sentinel is where it's based from, 2001: A Space Odyssey. Arthur C. Clarke, the guy that wrote the kind of novel, was just a writer for hire, really. It was created as the film was being made, funnily enough, which is what a lot of people don't know about. So, in a sense, Kubrick wrote most of the ideas for The Sentinel and 2001: A Space Odyssey, because The Sentinel was a shorter version of the main book. Mm-hmm. In the most literal narrative sense, as found in the concurrently written novel, the monolith is a tool and artifact of an alien civilization, yet we seem to encounter it by means of humans. So it could have been created by humans as well, perhaps. But it came from nowhere. So Rizwan, tell me, what explains, how did it get to where it was? Why these places, and what is the resemblance throughout the film? I just don't understand this.
Well, I think really, if we go back to the original point, the Odyssey of mankind, this monolith was essentially managed to instigate such an odyssey. It instigated the evolution and hence this man's desire to find out about this monolith. If you recall from the as described by Wikipedia itself, this is the film's largest and most unresolvable enigma. So what we have to remember is that there is no such...
Hello?
Literally...
there we go. Sorry, could you just repeat that again? We seem to have lost connection with you, but we're back online now.
Oh, sorry.
No, it's not your fault. It's technical difficulties at 10:24, but don't worry, you're fine now. Just talk.
Right. So remember that that in 2001: A Space Odyssey, the monolith. This is an enigma. This and this isn't just any old enigma that you come across in daily life. This is an enigma where you have to really think about it. I mean, I think I've never really heard of anything requiring as much thinking as this. I mean, this was a surprise to me when I thought about it, and then when I thought about everyone going crazy over this, really, I'm a bit low-key psyched about. I was a bit low-key psyched about the monolith when I heard about it, and even now I'm still a bit unfazed. But really, if you think about it, each time now remember this: each time the monolith is shown, man transcends to a different level of cognition, linking the primeval, futuristic, and mystic segments of the film. So, really, primeval referring to the fact that how seemingly rabid apes are becoming man. Futuristic in that we have found another monolith on the moon, and mystic in the rebirth, in Dave's rebirth to the star, to the ever-eternal Star Child. So it's a bit difficult to explain, really.
Bit of a mystery.
Very mysterious. But
well,
I think
the monolith is the subject of the film's final line of dialogue, spoken at the end of the Jupiter mission segment. Its origin and purpose still a total mystery. Reviewers Maclay and Roger Ebert, the late Roger Ebert, have noted that the monolith is the main element of mystery in the film. Ebert, writing of the shock of monolith's straight edges and square corners among the weathered rocks, and describing the apes warily circling it as prefiguring man reaching for the stars. Patrick Webster suggests the final line relates to how the film should be approached as a whole, noting the line appends not merely to the discovery of the monolith on the moon, but to our understanding of the film in the light of the ultimate questions it raises about the mystery of the universe and the unknown. Jared Laughlin claimed in a 2003 book that the monolith is Kubrick's representation of the cinema screen itself. It is a cinematic conceit for turn the monolith on its side, and one has the letterbox of the CinemaScope screen, the black rectangle on which the Star Child appears, as does the entirety of Kubrick's film. The internet-based film critic Rob Agar later produced a video essay also espousing this theory, which we had the pleasure of both watching and having a little chat and laugh about, which was great.
Yep, I feel I actually liked Agar's interpretation of the monolith. I felt it was quite sensible and modern enough, but I think it was all in all simple to understand for even myself, really. You just got into the film quite recently, as a matter of fact.
I know.
Right. So, the monolith. Now, in terms of... Now, I don't really see any sort of alchemical sort of significance. But philosophical, it's... fact that this thing came out of nowhere.
Right, sorry, could you just repeat that again? We're losing internet, but it's cool. Just repeat that again.
Yeah, so I can't really see any sort of alchemical significance of it, but the the evolutionary and religious, and not really religious, the evolutionary and historical interpretation of the monolith are quite sort of easy to pick up. Now, the third time we see... Now, we're going... So, there are so many questions about this. I mean, unbelievable. I mean, what could this be? Could it be a Stargate, a giant cosmic router, or transporter? Are all these visions happening inside Bauman's mind? And why does he end up in some cosmic hotel suite at the end of it? We just don't know. I mean, could it be... could it be that the pods had just been destroyed somehow?
Well, maybe, but because the interesting is, you know, that scene where he's sort of shaking his head abruptly on his way to that room.
Mm-hmm. Yes,
that is kind of a metaphor, because if you look closely at that scene and you look at his eyes, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you know the scene I'm talking about with kind of him behind the sort of his visor of his helmet.
Yes, where he's... is it that way where his pupils are dilating, isn't it?
Yeah. That scene, he's actually... If you look in the reflection of the visor itself, you can see the panels of the pod.
Mm-hmm. Yep,
he's actually still in the spaceship, but yet again, he's travelling to this place. So, in reality, he is... I'll stop explaining because I'm getting myself into a world. I don't even know what I'm saying right now. We've only got 1 minute 40 on the clock, so I'll quickly explain HAL. The HAL 9000 is the most reliable computer ever to date. We are all foolproof and incapable of error. Those are the very words of HAL. Quickly explain to me HAL.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So HAL, as you've said, is foolproof, so incapable of error. Now, what's really interesting is that he's been compared to Frankenstein's monster. Now, HAL, of course, is based on artificial intelligence. He's sentient, synthetic, and as well as being a sentient, synthetic life form. According to John Furman, HAL's very existence is an abomination, much like Frankenstein's monster. While perhaps not overtly monstrous, HAL's true character is hinted at by his physical deformity. Like a cyclops, he relies upon a single eye, examples of which are installed throughout the ship. The eye's warped, wide-angle point of view is shown several times, notably in the drawings of hibernating astronauts, all of whom HAL will later murder. In essence, a deformed deformed perception, really, is what HAL suffers from, and I think I think he wants to correct his point of view. He wants to become objective, but his fallibility...
Cool. I'm going to have to stop you there, Rizwan. Thank you so much for joining us today on 2001 Interpretive Odyssey. We might come back, we might return. It's worth visiting again. Thank you so much, Rizwan. Take care.
Yeah, you too. Good night.